nachman, meuman. Lesson number 29, the sages of Athens said, this man who sought a certain woman for a wife, but they would not hand her over to him. Why did he go looking for one of a superior status? He took a peg and tried to insert it towards the bottom of the wall, but it would not go in. He then tried to insert it higher up, and it went in. He said, this one too may find his bas mazel soulmate. This man who sought a certain woman for a wife, but they would not hand her over to him. Number one, not everything spoken is considered speech. Specifically, speech that goes unheard or unaccepted is not considered speech, as in there is no utterance, and no words without their voice being heard. Now the main reason why speech, there is no utterance and no words without their voice being heard. Now the main reason why speech is accepted is because there is something beneficial in it, for everyone desires benefit. Therefore, when there is benefit in that which is spoken, it is heard and accepted, but when it lacks any benefit, it is not accepted. But how does one make speech beneficial? By drawing speech from das, experiential, applied knowledge. Then it is beneficial. Nanach, nachman, meuman. When speech lacks das, it is of no benefit, as in without das. The soul has no benefit. The soul being a reference to speech, as in man became a living soul, which the Targum translates as a speaking soul. Number two, now raising and elevating das is accomplished by praising the tzaddikim. When the tzaddikim nachma, meuman are praised and lauded, dat is elevated, as in like an eagle rousing its cane nest, like an eagle rousing its cane nest. An eagle refers to the spirit, which refers to the which represents the tzaddik, which represents the tzaddik. Nach, nachma, meuman, as in a man possessing a spirit, and rousing its cane means rousing the mind from its slumber, from a state of immature consciousness, from a state of sleep. Cane refers to the mind, as in kneve, acquire wisdom, kneh, understanding, which are the two aspects of the mind. Even angels, when they want to say something that will be heard and accepted amongst them, as in who do his word, to hear the voice of his word. First praise and laud God. First praise and laud God, who is the tzaddik of the world, who is the tzaddik of the world, as a yin God is tzaddik righteous in all his ways through the years. That which is spoken is in the category of to hear. The was the opening of this verse. Bless God is every angels is the praise they first give to God, who is the tzaddik of the world, after which and through which, who do his word to hear the voice of his word, meaning that they speak words that are heard and accepted. Number three, this corresponds to white clothing, the rectification of speech, which is an aspect of malchus. Malchus is the mouth, is represented by white clothing. Clothing must be very well guarded, so that one does not disgrace one's clothes. They must properly be kept. They must be properly kept, so that there are no stains or spots on them. The greater a person is, the more he must guard his clothing. The greater one is, the more demanding the expectations are of him. Therefore a Torah scholar on whose clothing is found a spot is liable for the death penalty, because his conduct is more meticulously judged. In fact, the clothing itself passes judgment on him, as in dina de malchus, so the judgment of malchus. Is dina de malchus, so the judgment of malchus for clothing represents malchus. As Rabbi Yochanan referred to his clothing as his glory, which is an aspect of malchus, as the king of glory. Clothing also corresponds to justice, is the holy malchus. Justice is the holy malchus, which is represented by clothing. Clothing also corresponds to justice, is the holy malchus, which is represented by clothing, as in Aidam Javastis. Thus one who disgraces clothing is tantamount to rebelling against the malchus, and then the judgment of malchus passes judgment on him. In this way one creates a separation between the transcendent one and his immanence, and his immanence, Shechina, as in the serpent, draws her near and defiles her, which is represented by menstruate daham, daham blood as in. Why are your clothes adom red? This represents the stain and spots on the clothing that causes the malchus Shechina to be separated from the transcendent one. Then he cries out over his dwelling place. Then he cries out over his dwelling place. Then he cries out over his dwelling place, an allusion to his immanence. Then the evil maidservant, the malchus of evil, takes control, as in when a maidservant inherits her mistress, referring to the evil woman, corresponding to bad times. For there are 28 time periods, good times and bad times, and the evil maidservant, the bad times, must be subdued, as in your clothing should be white at all times. At all times, your clothing should be white. Nanach, nachma, meuman means without any spot, representing the purification of the Shekhinah from her menstruate condition, as in blood decomposes and transforms into milk. Now with their sins the wicked cause a separation between the transcendent one and the Shekhinah, for they cause her to become menstruate and to be referred to as a city of blood, for which reason the wicked are called men of blood. Now there are 365 negative commandments that correspond to the 365 giddim, sinews, blood vessels through which the blood flows, and depending upon the negative commandments that one has transgressed, so does one rouse menstruate blood in the Shekhinah. For there are various types of blood, and one must sweeten these bloods by rectifying the negative commandments that correspond to the blood vessels and draw whiteness into them, as in blood decomposes and transforms into milk. This is alluded to in bezH. This is alluded to in vigudecho, your clothing should be white at all times. Read as bigidecho, in your blood vessels, that is, one must draw whiteness into them. Number 4, now rectifying all the countless individual sins. Rectifying all the countless individual sins would be a very tedious job. For a person, it is impossible to rectify them in this way, because each and every negative commandment has many details and particulars. Therefore, one must rectify the quintessence of the giddim blood vessels, which is vayavavaged. He told you his covenant. Then by rectifying the covenant, which is the quintessence of blood vessels, all negative commandments that one has transgressed are automatically rectified, and whiteness, all negative commandments that one has transgressed are automatically rectified, and whiteness is drawn into them. For this reason the quintessence of blood vessels, which is the holy covenant, is connected with the holy name Shakai Shadalagud, for it Shakai shoots and fires whiteness and rectifications like an arrow into each and every detail as needed, even into very narrow and thin places. For there are places that are narrow and thin, into which no rectification can reach other than by way of the tikkun haklali, all-encompassing rectification, which shoots whiteness and rectification to all narrow and thin places. This is alluded to in Shakai will be bitzarecho, God will be with you in your troubles, tight places, meaning that it shoots and fires rectifications to the places that are tzahar nehero. For this reason the covenant is called Zohar Hurikiah, the brilliance of the sky. For before rectification the covenant is in a state of the sky will reveal its sin. But after rectification it shines mahazir and purifies the sky like the strip of the holiest crimson which turned white on Yom Kippur, symbolizing the whitening of the sins of the 365 negative commandments and the drawing of whiteness into the 365 blood vessels, as in your clothing in your blood vessels. Your clothing in your blood vessels should be white at all times. This is because all whiteness is drawn from the mind as in, flowing from Lebanon from the loiven, whiteness of the mind by rectifying the quintessence of the blood vessels. The mind is elevated as in like an eagle, he rouses his nest. An eagle represents the spirit which corresponds to the quintessence of the blood vessels, as in no spirit of sexual arousal arose in any man. He rouses his cane nest, means that he rouses K'nei wisdom, K'nei understanding. From slumber he hovers over his chicks, meaning that he hovers over and protects the mind that had been robbed, as in one who robs his father and mother, which represent the mind. A father is with a father, or which represent the minds. A father in wisdom and a mother in understanding. Thus a baby nurses from Shaddai, the breasts of his mother. A baby represents the immature mind that must be nursed and nurtured out of its immaturity by way of the tikkun klali, which shahakai shoots and fires like an arrow. Hence his mother refers to the congregation of Israel. Do not scorn when your mother ages, which Rashi explains to refer to your congregation, where all rectifications gather and are collected. Thus the main way in which the Jewish people come closer to God is by way of rectifying the covenants. That is their main way of coming closer to their Father in heaven. That is their main way of coming closer to their Father in heaven. As in, I carried you on the wings of an eagle and brought you to me. An eagle represents to the all-encompassing rectification, as in, he told you his covenants as above, which refers to the rectification of the covenant as above, which refers to the rectification of the covenant specifically in this way. I brought you to me. They were brought closer to God for the main way of coming close to God. For the main way of coming close to God is by way of rectifying the covenant. Is by way of rectifying the covenant. meuman. Nanach, nachma, meuman. Number 5, dependent upon this is earning a earning a livelihood without toil, which is an aspect of bread from heaven. That is upon the all-encompassing rectification, which is the rectification of the covenant, which is the way of the eagle in the heaven. This is the manna was like zeragad coriander seed, zeragad coriander seed. This is the zera, white drop of the gid of the limb, an aspect of flowing from Lebanon, whiteness, which represents the covenant upon which is dependent, earning a livelihood without toil, which is an aspect of manna, of bread from heaven. This is because earning a livelihood comes with toil and difficulty, when whatever is not made the all-encompassing rectification, the rectification of the covenant. For one who discards crumbs of bread will be pursued by poverty, and all the more so one who discards crumbs of the mind. This is alluded to in do not eat over blood. Do not eat over blood. That is, you will not eat because of blood. For one who has caused the Shekhinah to become menstruate like a city of blood, as in, why are your clothes red? As in a stain found on his clothing, which represents a blemish of the covenant, which is a blemish in the quintessence of the vessels, corresponding to a blemish in the clothing. Hence, you will not eat, your livelihood will come with toil. Thus the verse concludes, do not be act upon omens, and do not be meuman, act upon auspicious timing. For by eating over blood, one has come over the nachman or the nachman serpent to be upon the shchina, causing the evil maid serving the bad times to take control. Hence, do not eat over blood. Do not eat over blood, in order that you do not be menachash, that you not cause the nachash to be drawn upon her, and do not be meuman, or do not be menachash, that you not cause the nachash to be drawn upon her, and do not be meuman from the root of oina time, meaning so that you do not cause the bad times of the 28 time periods to take control. For this reason, Jacob requested, give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, for the two are interconnected. Sustenance is dependent upon why clothing, as alluded to into it, to who the fill, to eat to the fill. To eat to the fill and to dress elegantly. And regarding Jacob, who drew a whiteness, it was in uncovering the whiteness by way of making the tikkun haklali, as in the first of my virility. The verse says he dwelled in tents, an aspect of the sky, as in he stretched the sky like a tent to dwell in, corresponding to the way or corresponding to the way of the eagle in the sky, to Zoyer Harakia, or the brilliance of the sky, to a strip of Zoyer Harakia, the brilliance of the sky, to a strip of Zoharis, to a strip of Zoharis. To a strip of the holiest, crimson that whitens the Jewish people's sins, and the blood of the 365 blood vessels seen used as if they are red like crimson, they will be white like wool. If they are red like crimson, they will be white like wool. Number 6. But as long as one has not made the all-encompassing rectification, and the Shekhinah is still in a state of why are your clothes red of menstruate blood, then speech is forbidden, as in I am muted, dumia silenced, I am muted, dumia silenced. This is because these damim blahans cause a state of dumia, for the essence of speech is dependent upon the all-encompassing rectification, as in he told you in his covenant. This is alluded to after Rebbe Shimon passed away. Each student said to the other, don't allow your mouth to make your flesh sin. Rebbe Shimon represents the power of the covenants, as in Vayagayid, he told you his covenants. In other words, the Giyid, which is the quintessence of blood vessels. And when the all-encompassing rectification is lacking, speech is then forbidden, as in I am muted, dumia silenced, and in don't allow your mouth to make your flesh sin. And when one speaks at a time when there is no all-encompassing rectification, one transgresses. Do not go around gossiping among your people, and one is one who goes around gossiping, revealing secrets. However, during the times of Rebbe Shimon, each student said to the other, open your mouth, for when there is the tikkun haklali, which is the power of the covenant, bezH is permissible for the bloods have then been rectified, as in blood decomposes and transforms into milk, corresponding to your clothing should be white at all times. This is alluded to in so that glory praise you, and not yidom be silent. Glory refers to clothing, as mentioned above, and these are whitened from a state of why are your clothes adom red, representing menstruate dam blood. Then not yidom, for whiteness is drawn into the blood, as in flowing from levanon whiteness. And then speech is permissible, as in open your mouth. Number 7. This is represented by epilepsy, when the blood surges and is pumped into the brain. Pressure on the brain builds up, and this pressure on the brain causes the limbs to tremble. This is because the brain is the general of the army, and when an enemy attacks the general, the entire army trembles, because they are all dependent upon him. This causes the Shekhinah, corresponding to Malchus, represented by David, to fall, as in the fallen hut of David. However, through the all-encompassing rectification that rouses the mind and draws whiteness into the blood vessels, as in your clothing should be white at all times. One is healed from the illness illness of epilepsy. One is healed of epilepsy. As in, your clothing should be white at all times. One is healed from the illness of epilepsy, then she has fallen, but no longer. Arise, O Virgin of Israel. After that, speech is permissible. As in, open your mouth. This is alluded to in. Do not go around gossiping. Do not stand by idly as the blood of your friend is spilled. Your friend refers to the two meumanns, two friends that never part, when you do not cause them to be idled and rendered non-functioning by the surge of blood that puts pressure on the brain. One is then not liable of transgressing. Do not go around gossiping, for speech is then permissible, as in open your mouth during the times of Rebbe Shimon Eitz. This is alluded to in he boiged, transgresses with wine. Boiged alludes to the Gidim blood vessels, sinews, through which one who goes around gossiping, revealing secrets, as in when wine goes in, secrets come out. This is because wine represents the Gidim, the surging of the blood, as in don't look at wine when it is red, for it transforms into blood. For this reason wine is called a tiroish, as a sage is taught. If one merits, one becomes a rosh, a leader, and if one does not merit, one becomes a rosh, a pauper. Not meriting means that one has not refined one's blood. Not meriting means that one has not refined one's blood, which causes one to become impoverished, or yet not have bread from heaven as above. However, if one merits, one becomes a rosh, literally a head, alluding to the mind, which is the drawing of whiteness into the mind, as in flowing from the vana. Number 9, this corresponds to faithful, honest business dealings. One who does not conduct his business dealings honestly and is sunken in lust for money, robbing his friends, arouses the blood, as in why are your clothes red, also causing that dam nida, impure menstruate blood. For the Shechina as in their gold will become nida, impure. This is alluded to in damim in the plural form, as a double has a double meaning. Damim in the plural form as it has a double meaning. In the context, blood and money. Menstruate blood is caused by money. Thus robbery is referred to as beged clothing, betrayal, as in beged boigidim bagadu, they donned the garments of betrayers, which refers to the blemish of clothing, a stain on one's clothing, for which reason, a stain on one's clothing, for which reason the Targum Yonason translates this verse as bazuzei, ubazuzei, deazuzei, bezuzei, buzizei, uvuzizei, ivuzizei, devuzizei, buzuzei, they plundered and plundered. They plundered and plundered. Plunder, an allusion to lust for money. Zuzei, coins money. For the more one has, the more one craves. Thus, the essential rectification for business dealings is to have in mind wherever one goes and whatever one says, that everywhere one goes and everything one says in connection with business dealings is being done for the sake of earning money to give charity. This is the all-encompassing rectification for blood money. For charity corresponds to the quintessence of blood vessels. Oisineus, as in seed for yourselves. See for yourselves charity, which refers to the white drop of seed. This rectification elevates the mind, as in the mind is white like silver. For this reason, business dealings are called omaaiiinnn, implying that a rectification of clothing of blood is involved. Masa alludes to, for my sins have risen above my head, as a masik covet, literally heavy weight. They weight down upon me, which refers to the 365 negative commandments that overwhelm the head, which is the mind, as in do not stand by idly as your friend's blood is being spilled, which refers to the blemish of clothing, as above. Chaved alludes to the Melech HaKavod, King of Glory. Kaved alludes to blood, for the kaved liver is filled with blood, representing the blood of menstruation. the blood of menstruation, nanach, nachman, nachman, meuman, refers to the tikkun haklali, which is charity, as in a person's matan gift. He broadens the way for him, referring to the power of the covenant, which is the tzaddik. Nanach, nachman, nachman, as in a tzaddik is graceful and gives. For this reason, our sages said, with your mouth this is charity, for then speech is permissible. Number 10, and now in principle, the all-encompassing rectification tikkun haklali must be accomplished first, by way of which every particular issue will be automatically rectified. And though the tikkun haklali is higher and more exalted than the rectification of each individual issue, nevertheless, since all rectification is dependent upon the mind, that is, to draw whiteness from the mind as in flowing from the vanoin, and since it is impossible to elevate the mind other than by way of the tikkun haklali, as in and since it is impossible to elevate the mind other than by way of the tikkun haklali, as in like an eagle he rouses his nest, therefore one must go first to the highest level, which is the tikkun haklali, in order to rectify and elevate the mind, by way of which everything is automatically rectified. This is the meaning of this man who sought a certain woman as a wife, but they would not hand her over to him. He was seeking an aspect of a God-fearing woman. However, he was blemished with sins and had caused menstruate blood to the Shekhinah, causing the serpent to draw the Shekhinah near to him, thus causing a separation between the transcendent one and the Shekhinah. Thus, they would not hand her over to him, as in he cries out over his dwelling place. Why did he go looking for one of a superior status? That is, when one wants to purify the malchus from blood, one must go to the highest level, that is the tikkun haklali, which is above the God-fearing woman, as in a tzaddik rules over the fear of God. Nanach, nachma, meuman for the tzaddik. Nanach, nachma, meuman, who himself represents the tikkun haklali, is above, and he rules over the fear of God, which is an aspect of malchus, as in, if not for the fear of malchus, thus he took a peg and tried to insert it towards the bottom. Pegs, spikes, or nails. Pegs, spikes, or nails, as Rashi explains, allude to the words of Torah, as in the words of the wise are like spikes and nails. He took a peg and tried to insert it towards the bottom, refers to the lower levels, when there is no tikkun haklali, as in after Rebbe Shimon passed away, when speech became forbidden, thus it would not go in, since it is then forbidden to speak words of Torah. He then tried to insert it higher up, and it went in, because that represents the times of Rebbe Shimon, who represented the power of the covenant, which corresponds to the tikkun haklali. When speech is permissible, this means that he showed them that it is impossible to rectify speech other than by way of praising the tzaddikim. Nanach, nachma, meuman, which is the all-encompassing rectification for speech. The same applies to all things. It is impossible to rectify them other than by way of the tikkun haklali, in order to elevate the mind from where all whiteness is drawn. The hus, this one too may find his bas mazel soulmate. Mazel is an aspect of the mind of noisel, flowing from the vanoin. He cited speech as an example and showed them that it is impossible to rectify it other than by way of the tikkun haklali. The proof is that during Rebbe Shimon's times, speech was in a rectified state, but after his passing, it was said, don't allow your mouth to make your flesh sin. This is alluded to, and he tried to insert it towards the bottom. Similarly, all things must be rectified by way of specific tikkun haklali, such as business dealings by way of charity, and likewise with all things with its respective tikkun haklali. This is in order to elevate the mind, in order to draw whiteness from it, in order to rectify and cleanse all blemishes, which is impossible other than by way of the tikkun haklali. This one too may find his bas mazel soulmate as a noisel flowing from the vanoin, from the loiv and whiteness of the mind. Kesef nivchar l'shoin tzadik, kesef nivchar l'shoin tzadik, chosen money, the tongue of a tzadik. Kesef nivchar l'shoin tzadik. The meaning of this verse and its connection to this lesson will be explained elsewhere. Sichai Maran number 146, related to section number 8. Nanach, nachman, nachman, meuman. Therefore, a a woman whose menstruate blood is profuse and has no fixed period, though wine is harmful for her, as in don't look at wine when it is red, for it turns to blood, as in when wine goes in, secrets come out. Nevertheless, her healing is specifically by way of wine, at which a true tzaddik, nanach, nachman, nachman, meuman, as gaze. This is because the eyes are an aspect of hairs for the 7 layers of the eyes. For the 7 layers of the eyes correspond to 7 locks of his hairs, 7 locks of his hairs, which represent the mind. For the hairs are an adjunctive extension of the mind, and therefore the 7 omaaiiinnn, and therefore the 7 machlefos locks of hair. Machlefos locks of hair correspond to the 7 divine attributes, emotions that will add our holier, pass through and across thought in the mind. This is because thought in the mind follows in tandem with the human emotions, and the thoughts that pass through and across the mind at any given moment will be colored by or connected with whatever emotion has taken hold of a person at that time. Thus there are 7 machlefos, locks of hair, thoughts that holiest pass through the mind, but when one blemishes the hairs, sight, the 7 layers of the eyes is blemished. Therefore of Samson, Shimshon, who blemished the 7 locks of his hair, the verse says, the Philistines, the Philistines gouged his eyes out, and therefore the 7 layers of the eyes rectify the 7 locks of hair. The 7 layers of the eyes rectify the 7 locks of hair, which are the hair on his head, was like whitened wool, representing the strip of a holiest that whitens the redness of the 365 blood vessel sinews, as in, if they are red like crimson, they will become as white as wool. This rectifying redness, which corresponds to menstruate blood, this is alluded to in, from the Meitzar I called out to God, the same letters as semer wool, tight places Meitzar, the same letters as semer wool, as brought in the Kabbalistic texts. Kavanois, I look there and understand. Lesson number 30, how does one reap a bed of knives? They asked him with the horn of a donkey. He answered, since when does a donkey have a horn? They asked, and since when is there such a thing as a bed of knives? He responded, they brought him 2 eggs and asked him which one is from a white hen and which one from a black. He brought 2 pieces of cheese and asked them which is from a white goat and which is from a black goat. How does one reap a bed of knives? Number 1, it is impossible to perceive godliness other than by way of many constrictions, from cause to effect, from a higher perception to a lower perception, as we see empirically. It is impossible to attain a higher perception other than by way of a lower perception. For instance, when a teacher wants to explain some deep thought to a student, he must convey it through some simple and elementary thought, so that the student will be able to understand it specifically. He first presents to him fundamental and basic principles, so that the student can thereby grasp the intent, which is the deeper and greater perception. And to each individual must search intensely for a capable teacher such as this, who will be able to explain and convey to him the understanding of such a sublime and deep concept as the perception of godliness. One needs an extremely great teacher who will be able to explain such a deep concept by way of simpler concepts, so that simple-minded people will be able to understand. And the more simple-minded and further one is from God, the greater the teacher that one needs. Nanach, nachman, nachman, meuman, nanach, nachman, meuman, bezH.